Ladies and gentlemen, this man is my in-law because he got married to my elder sister, even though he has not finished paying. Please, can we put our hands together for my brother, my friend, Mr. Stephen Ogundeji. Please, can we put our hands together for him? Madam, I want to follow him. I think I want to escort and come now. Please, let's clap for him. Let's clap for him. Mr. Stephen, very, very vast as well. I'm sure you're going to have a nice time. Please, in the course of our speakers speaking and doing their presentations, if you have questions, please just write them down and send them over to me. If you have questions, we've had one speaker, we're having the second one now. So please, you can take down your questions, give it to any of the ushers, and let them send me. Thank you.
All right. This is noon, right? Noon. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, still morning, right? Oh, okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Ogundeji, and I'm happy to be here. In fact, I never knew it would be possible because when I informed my colleague, Olumide, that we're making a trip to Kano for this event, and he didn't turn it down, and I felt it's important for me to also make myself available. So thank you very much, our chief host, and every other person seated here. Chief AJ, I was telling Olumide, Mr. Ola yesterday that the voice I used to hear on the radio is not the person I'm seeing. So it was like, okay, that's how it is. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And for every one of us seated here, I mean the core members, I want to say you are in the right place. Because what we're here to discuss today is about our stories. And I'm happy Olumide has, opened the floor. And I'm here to talk about my story and a little bit about how my profession impacts talent. So, when someone came to the hotel this morning, I said, "Oh, welcome to Kano." I said, I'm a Kano man." So, Olumide Adamawa, Kano, and even when I got the job in Lagos at Sabi, I felt I don't want to move to Lagos. So I do remote. In fact, in the last 6 months, I was working remotely. I went back last week, and I'm coming back for this event. So I grew up in Kano. And Olumide said something that always challenge yourself. You see, your background can never determine your destination. It's not possible. Only if you determine. Growing up from a very humble family, how many of you know France Road here? France Road. By Sanusi, right? Okay. So I grew up on that street and from a very humble family. At a point, 9 of us in a room. Yes, 9 of us in a room. And at a point, we're praying for the guy in the next room to vacate so that we can occupy the next room. So that's to tell you the place I was coming from, or my experience while growing up. Back then in my primary school, I remember a friend of mine. I was walking barefooted to the school, and my mom bought a slippers for me. I told my wife that story. She was crying the first day I told her that story. My mom bought a slippers for me, and I was using that to school, and I was playing football. You all know monkey post, right? You put slippers to serve as a goal post. And I went somewhere, turned back, I realized that someone had stolen, had gone with my slippers. I couldn't tell my mom. I was going the next day, and she saw me barefoot. She was like, "Where is the slippers I bought for you yesterday?" She started the beating and everything. And a friend of mine, Moses Ekuzo, is in Russia now. He saw me. He was like, "Where is your slippers? Why are you coming to the school barefooted again?" He now gave me, this canvas that you can open it one way, like a brush kind of use. Yeah. Kito, right? He gave me that canvas. I looked at the canvas. This canvas is so nice to be worn to school. I started wearing the canvas to the church. So, just to tell you my background. But at a point in my life, a lot started changing. And that was when I determined to make a difference. Immediately after my secondary school, that was all with my parents. I started doing things on my own. I did receptionist, I worked in hotels, like trying to make ends meet. And Olumide, you went to university like this, right? Logically, right? From secondary. Mine was like this, zigzag. But at the end of the day, whichever way you go to the mountain, either you go through or you cross, you jump over. The most important thing is that you pass through the mountain. So in my own case, from secondary to poly, from poly to university, back to poly again, you understand? HND, now went back to university, degree, and at the end of the day, I found myself just like you guys, your Kaki, NYSC, and all that in Kebbi State. And that was where I made a strong determination that, Stephen, you will make it. I determined that I'm gonna make it. And immediately after my service here, first job, while in service, I was busy reading, studying, interviews. And my first interview, I went Bank PHB. How many of you know Bank PHB? Now Keystone. The very first interview, I got the job. And that's why preparation is very important in anything at all you're doing. Olumide gave us a short background to that. And when I got that job, I was on the job. And I was like, when will I become the MD of this bank? That shows you how ambitious I was. How ambitious I was. I was like, what will I do to become the MD of this bank? And it was like, but you are too ambitious, so this thing cannot work. But I was challenging myself. I got married. My wife was a banker. I was a banker. We jump out of the house. You see that I was in the bedroom bathing the baby. She's in the kitchen. At times I'll be in the kitchen cooking, and she will be bathing. That was the story. But after 3 years, I quit. I just decided I said, let me do something I'll be much more happy about. And in 2011, I started going to some libraries just to read and find a way to make ends meet. And I met this man, 2011. He came into the library, he was sweating. I was like, this guy, the way this guy looked like a scholar. Let me interact with him. And I interacted with him, and that was how we became friends since 2011. Now, when I left, and someone met me and said, Stephen, you are a very smart guy. I love the way you do things. There's an NGO called eHealth Africa. They are recruiting. Look, just go there, and I know you pass the interview and all that. I got the job with eHealth Africa. After 1 year, I wasn't satisfied. I felt, let me do something different. A lot of people, went to universities in the UK for their masters on scholarship, right? But I had to put money together. Yes, I remember back then, I think about 3 or 4 million. I went, and after I studied global human resource management, and just like Olumide, after the MSc, I was like, what next? I'm not too okay with this country. Let me go back to Nigeria, where I feel, a lot of us feel just going out of the country is maybe the best thing that will happen to you, but it's not like that in all cases. Depending on the kind of mindset, you have. Coming back to Nigeria, eHealth Africa called me back, moved me to the HR department, and I started doing something, earning good money, and at a point I felt the organization was becoming like a ministry of, like everything is well structured, you earn good money. But I felt there is more challenges to life than just earning money. And I got the offer with O2 Network. O2 Network, Sabi, as the head of talent management. And I and this guy connected. This man, it took us almost 2 months to get this man into that organization. That shows how expensive talent is. Now, let me tell you. You might think there's no job in Nigeria, but I tell you, there are jobs in Nigeria. The only thing you need to do is to find a way to position yourself put yourself in a particular sector where demand for that sector, or let me say supply for that talent is low and the demand is high. That's all you need. And importantly, work on your soft skills. I've interviewed so many people. At times, 80% of people I interview get the job based on their soft skills, not just on their technical skills, right? Someone will come to the interview and tell you, oh, I have masters in computer science, I'm a first-class graduate, I'm X, Y, Z. And some of them will come to you, the way they talk, you know that you can work with this person. And the most difficult people to work with are people without character. I'm sure you're aware of that. Once the character attitude is missing, then you find it very difficult to work with people like that. But people with that soft skill, something will attract you to them one way or the other. Because I knew I worked on my soft skills. The way I talk to people. And some of you saw me working in Hub. That was never how I was working 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, I was working like this. But I realized that I need to work on my skills. I started reading books. I read the book, I saw your book last week, Richard Templar, The Rules for Work. And when I started reading that book, it shows that in that book, it's not all about your skills, right? There are a lot of things that connect you to people, and these are your soft skills, right? Now, 2 guys attended interviews in that book for the role. Okay, they were managers, right? And the organization was looking for a senior manager, a regional manager. And during the interview went fantastic. Everything worked well. But the consultants studied the movement of both candidates. So one was walking anyhow, right? So rude and all that. But the other guy was so soft in his movement and the way he communicates. And the other guy got the job. Now, the guy that was so smart went to the consultant and said, oh, but I did well. I got the job. And the guy said, no, you didn't get the job. The other guy got the job because you don't have the regional manager's work. So, if you walk into the bank, the way a customer service person will work is different from the way operation manager will work. I don't know if you have noticed that. And the way the branch manager will work, majestically. Right? So that's the rule for work. So your soft skill has to do with a lot about your personality, the way you talk, the way you meet, the way you interact with people. So these are very, very important. But like I said, whatever you do, right? Whatever you are doing at all, aside working on your soft skills, ensure that you position yourself in that sector or in that place where the demand is so high, but the supply is low. I told my wife sometime ago, I said, look, oh, no. My son cannot go to university and study. There are a lot of comments. I say, I don't want to mention. Maybe you have done those courses, but apologies. My son will not go to university to go and study English, marketing. Even though my wife studied English. But you won't go and study, like all those courses that are non-value adding. Because the world is changing. A lot of things are changing, right? You can imagine when Olivia clinged to AI, nobody was thinking of AI. But today, AI is the order of the day. We were discussing about Mark Zuckerberg yesterday, and he signed up fee, right? For someone, $100 million. I'm sure a lot of you know Facebook, right? $100 million that just come and work for me. That's not the salary. Like, sign up, just come and work. And he's into AI research and everything. So you just have to position yourself. I gave you a little bit about my background. Where you are coming from never matters, right? But redefine where you're going to. Like CD, those of us that did MS-DOS, change direction, right? When you type and you say, oh, change direction. So you need to be changing direction time to time just to make sure you are familiar with the trend of things and not get stuck, wherever you find yourself. So at this point, I think I saw the MC. Oh, my in-law, right? Yeah. So thank you very much, and I'm still very much part of this event.